there and you have your pen and you have your notepad and you're taking notes and you're revising and you're going over it and you're asking questions. All of this, it requires patience. Especially nowadays, where our attention span has been reduced because of the digital devices that we use. For us, it's even harder than before. You would see when you detox yourself from these digital devices, your ability to concentrate for a longer time will increase. You will see that you're able to sit without having to fidget. You're able to sit without having the urge to look at something, to watch something, to read something else, to take your mind off what you're actually studying at the moment. But you have to figure a way to control yourself. The Shaykh Hafidhullah, he says, وَرِعَايَةُ حَقِّ الشَّيْخِ تَحْتَاجُ إِلَى صَبْرٍ. He says, and taking into consideration and preserving the rights of the Shaykh, of the teacher, it requires patience. There will be circumstances where you're studying and you're seeking knowledge and there's a teacher that's teaching you. And he may not necessarily be the most pleasant in the way that he will treat you. Sometimes he may not even acknowledge you. He may come, teach, leave. Right? And you're used to this aspect of, interaction with the teacher. Or sometimes he might give you the cold shoulder. Or sometimes, in terms of his personality, he might just be closed. Right? If you're not patient, you will react in a manner where you will think to yourself, you know what? I'm just going to leave. But at the end of the day, you're the one who's losing out. Because the purpose of you attending the gatherings of knowledge is not for you to become friends with the Shaykh. The purpose of you attending the gatherings of knowledge is for you to receive the ilm of the Shaykh. And for the ilm of the Shaykh to be able to open up other doors of knowledge for you. This is the whole purpose behind it. I've been to gatherings where I've had teachers, and the teacher doesn't even, he would come. I remember there was a kitab we studied with one of the mashayikh. Throughout the whole time we were studying, the Shaykh was not as welcoming as we would have expected. Now, this is not the case for all mashayikh. Different mashayikh have different personalities. The book took us about close to 2 years to complete, right? And the ta'ab that we went through to attend the class, wallahi. Let me explain. We would, me and Sheikh Khalid, who teaches in Medina College, we would leave, because my car broke down, we would leave after Asr. The lesson is after Maghrib. We would pray Asr in the Jamia. We would leave after Asr, and we would have to walk half an hour in the heat to the gate. Right? We would cross the road, and because the university is so far out from the city, you can't order Careem, you can't order Uber. They don't come that far out back then. So we would just have to wait in the sun and put our arm out for someone to take us. And then eventually someone would come, they would drop us off, sometimes at the masjid, sometimes at a place that's close to the masjid. And then on the way back, we would have to try and do the same thing. We'd walk from the masjid to where the motorway is, we'd put our hand out, right? And try and see if we can get a ride back to the Jamia. So we did this for a while, until alhamdulillah, I got a new car. But anyway, so there was ta'ab. There were times it was raining. We would come out of our dorms with a white thobe, and because it would rain and there would be wind, and we were walking through sand, we'd end up in the masjid with the white thobe with brown dots all over the thobe. Eventually, the Shaykh, he completed the book. Some may have expected, if you're coming from the West, you're thinking, maybe we're going to have a gathering with the Shaykh, maybe go out, he's going to invite us to his house. He gave us the ijazah and he left. And that was it. Some people would, the first time that they come into contact with a teacher who is a bit cold and is not very welcoming, they would run away because they're soft. If you want me to be honest, you know, many things when you're seeking knowledge, you have to take it on the chin. You have to accept it and just think, look, at the end of the day, I'm here to seek ilm. I'm here to seek knowledge. There will be things I will go through. I will face things that are unexpected, you know. But at the end of the day, I'm doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I am seeking this ilm for the sake of Allah. And bi'idhnillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bestow me with it. The Shaykh Hafidhullah, he moves on to the second type. He says, وَالنَّوْعُ الثَّانِي صَبْرٌ فِي أَدَائِهِ وَبَثِّهِ وَتَبْلِيغِهِ إِلَى أَهْلِهِ. Right. The Shaykh says, number two, the second form of patience entails the patience that is required for you to act upon it, right? And for you to spread it, right? For you to spread it and spread it to those that are in need of it. فَالْجُلُوسِ لِلْمُتَعَلِّمِينَ يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى صَبْرٍ. Sitting in front of those that are, here to learn, those who are there to learn, it requires patience. وإفهامهم يحتاج إلى صبر, and trying to make them understand requires patience. واحتمال زلاتهم يحتاج إلى صبر, and with bearing, shall we say, their mistakes and their shortcomings, it requires patience. For you to come to the masjid, or for you to have a class that you teach week in, week out, it requires an element of patience. For you to have that level of consistency, it requires patience. For you to be patient when the students that you are explaining something to don't understand it, so you have to repeat it, and then they still don't get it, so you have to repeat it again, and they don't get it, so you have to change your usloob, and you have to add other examples. You have to be patient, because at the end of the day, ikhwan, what makes talabul ilm greater than any other act of worship is this aspect. The first aspect and the second aspect combined together. That you are seeking it to remove ignorance from yourself, and on top of that, it has a knock-on effect. It benefits those around you. Therefore, you benefit in return. For that which you teach a person, and they act upon it, you will be rewarded for it, they will be rewarded for it if they do it properly, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this can have a snowball effect, to where it may start off small, but by the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you're truthful, it can turn into something that is greater than your imagination, greater than anything you could ever imagine. And this comes down to the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see that we are mentioning names of ulama who lived over 1,000 years ago. How is it possible for a man to have lived in the dusty cities of Iraq, or in the dusty cities of Al-Hijaz, right, Mecca and Medina, and for them to have sat in the masjid, and there was no live streaming then, there was no shorts that were clipped up and spread out and people would watch them. None of that existed. How is it possible that these men would sit in the masjid and they would teach people? But yet, they died, and their bones have rotten, and their bones don't even exist. Where they were buried, the soil has eaten them up. But their name still lives on, right? There's a line of poetry, some of the ulama mentioned. They say, مَوْتُ التَّقِي حَيَاةٌ لَنْقِطَاعَ لَهَا قَدْ مَاتَ قَوْمٌ وَهُمْ فِي النَّاسِ أَحْيَاءٌ. This is the reality of their situation. They have died and they passed away, but it is as if they're still alive. Their names are being mentioned, the knowledge they spread is being mentioned, their quotes itself is being mentioned. And this is all from the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this can only happen when a person is truthful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you can live now, die within 30, 40 years at the age of 60, or even sometimes at the age of 40, right? But yet, your knowledge will live on for an extra 500, 600, 700 years, maybe even 1,000 years after you've passed away. And it will spread to places that you would never think a Muslim would live in that country, or a Muslim would live in that land. But at the same time, what you taught in the masjid, right? is being spread. You know, by the fadl is being, it was spread from there to that place by the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it requires patience. For you to attain this great reward, it requires patience. You have to be patient in this issue of teaching. And you have to be patient because you have to be patient and sincere. The reason being is, and actually, you know what I'd say? I'd say your patience is a sign of your sincerity. And there's examples of that. You know, people when they teach, some may teach because they get this rush or because they get this pleasure from having a large crowd sitting in front of them. But that is a wrong intention. To where a person who may have one student will come day in, day out, week in, week out to the class. If it's just one, maybe two, maybe three, the person says to themselves, you know what? There's no point of me teaching. Nobody wants to come and benefit. The reality is, those that 1, 2, and 3 are the ones that will spread your ilm. You will see. Knowledge that you spread, these are the ones that will spread it. I'll give you an example. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, when he started teaching, he had a small gathering. It was unknown in reality. That didn't push him away from teaching. He kept on teaching for years, up until, the hair on his beard hair and the hair on his head turned grey, rahimahullah. To where he would have large gatherings, or should we say, there would be many people that would attend his gatherings in the masjid. Then he went on to be from those that would teach in the Haramain. And he would look at the great virtue of that, where you're able to teach in the same place that the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions, whether it is the Masjid al-Nabawi, or whether it is the Masjid al-Haram, where you're sitting in front of the Kaaba, and you have a gathering in front of you. And it is the most blessed place on earth, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored you to be able to be from those that are min warathatil anbiya, from the inheritors of the prophets, where you are taking up the position that is similar to the position of prophethood, where you're commanding the good and you're forbidding the evil, and you're teaching the people the revelation, and you're bringing them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is only a fadl and a virtue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives to those that He favors subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب, the Shaykh Hafidhullah, he said, وفوق هذين النوعين من صبر العلم الصبر على الصبر فيهما والثبات عليهما لكل إلى شأو العلا وثباته ولكن عزيز في الرجال ثباته. The Shaykh Hafidhullah, he said, look, he said above, something that's above these forms of patience is for you to be patient upon being patient. For you to be patient upon being patient itself, which shows what? It shows how difficult this quest, difficult this path is itself. That the patience that is required from you, you need to be patient upon it itself. Which makes you ponder, what is the reality of this path? Only a person who's truly sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be able to last on this path. And I mentioned before, there is a quote that you'll find from some of the Salaf rahimahumullah. They said that طلبنا العلم لغير الله فأبى أن يكون إلا لله. That we sought knowledge for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the knowledge itself, it refused for it to be sought except for the sake of Allah. Because when a person actually, grasps and understands and comprehends what he is seeking and what he is learning and implements it, it completely prevents a person and pushes a person away from that which will bring about the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That which will completely ruin your good deeds, which is a riya, which is, for the wrong reasons, and not doing it sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it requires for you to be firm upon this path, for you to have thabat. And the only way for you to acquire this thabat is for you to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you tawfiq. Without the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will never succeed. So you need to be a person who is connected to their Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala, and dua is one of the most important, one of the best ways for you to acquire this tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. طيب, the Shaykh Hafidhahullah, now he's going to enter into the adab, the etiquette of seeking knowledge. Right? And we will see that he will bring up 4 different points. The 4 different points that the Shaykh Hafidhahullah will bring up, we will come across it in the different comprehensive principles. So he says, Hafidhahullah, Al-Ma'qid al-Ashir, the 10th comprehensive principle, right? He says, mulazamatu adab al-ilm, sticking to the etiquettes of knowledge. Sticking to the etiquettes of knowledge. So let's read through this, and then we're going to get to what are the 4 ways that we will be able to break down the etiquettes of ilm. The Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he says, قال ابن القيم رحمه الله تعالى في كتابه مدارج السالكين أدب المرء عنوان سعادته وفلاحه وقلة أدبه عنوان شقاوته ومثل الأدب ولا استجلب حرمانهما بمثل قلة الأدب. The Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he mentioned something from the book of Ibn al-Qayyim known as Madarij al-Salikin. Madarij al-Salikin is a very, very beneficial book. Right? It's one of the books of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah that will have a profound effect on you and your outlook on life and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If anyone is going to buy a copy of the book Madarij al-Salikin, make sure you buy a good print. Right? And the best print, and this is important, whenever you buy books, right? Because the books you buy are an investment. What are they an investment for? They're an investment for you in terms of your ilm, and they're an investment for you when you pass away. Once you pass away, these books, what can you do with them? You can donate it to a specific markaz or a place where students seek knowledge, and they can benefit from those books, and you will be rewarded for it. So when you're buying a book, make sure that you buy a book where, especially if it's one of the books of the ulama of the past, where the tahqiq, meaning the authentication according to the manuscript that's been found, right? In terms of when they type it up and they're verifying it, is the best out there. Okay. This is the most important thing, because you want to make sure that you are reading exactly what the author wrote. So for this, Madarij al-Salikin is a print by, now I think Dar ibn Hazm printed. Ata'at al-Ilm or something like that. Dar ibn Hazm printed. They took the printing rights, I think, from Dar Alam al-Fawaid. Dar ibn Hazm printed. I think it's about 4 volumes, 4 or 5 volumes. So if anyone's going to buy it, make sure you purchase it. And any book of Ibn al-Qayyim that you're going to buy, make sure you buy it from that printing house, the ones who did that tahqiq. Because what you'd find is the books of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah have been printed in majmu'at, right? In groups. So they group together a bunch of his books and they'll sell it to you as a whole, right? Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, Group 4. Or they might sell it to you individually. But make sure you buy it from that specific publisher, Dar ibn Hazm, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So he mentions, rahimahullah, Ibn Qayyim mentions, rahimahullah, he says, adabul mar'i, that the etiquette of a person is considered to be unwanu sa'adatihi wa falahihi. It is something that points out his happiness and his success. And your etiquette, they point towards this. وَقِلَّةُ أَدَبِهِ, and you being a person who's not well-mannered, is a sign that points towards the opposite. Meaning what? You being unsuccessful. فَمَا اسْتُجْلِبَ خَيْرُ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ بِمِثْلِ الْأَدَبِ. Ibn al-Qayyim here, he points out, he says that there is nothing similar to good manners in terms of bringing khair to you in this dunya and the hereafter. And there is nothing worse than bad manners in terms of pushing away khair from you in this dunya and the hereafter. And he didn't add khair al-dunya wal-akhirah, in this dunya and the hereafter. Khair al-dunya wal-akhirah, in this dunya and the hereafter. You know this aspect of al-adab. The aspect of al-adab is considered to be something that is extremely important within the Sharia, within the religion of Islam. And many of you know that hadith surrounding this issue. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِيُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, right? That I was sent to complete or perfect manners, وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ, and interact with the people. Muslim disbeliever in a good way, be well mannered with them. You know, the Prophet ﷺ, when his mannerism was described by Aisha radiallahu anha, she would say, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ, right? That his mannerisms were the Quran. He embodied it in terms of applying it. So your mannerisms are extremely important. The way you carry yourself, the way you conduct yourself, the way you or interact with others, the way you speak, the traits that you adorn yourself with, all of this is part of your mannerisms. And don't use the excuse of, oh, this is how Allah created me. You know, this is how Allah created me. Because all of us have certain traits within us that need to be, or certain aspects of us that need to be sharpened. You know, some of us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may have given you more ilm and more forbearance. Some of you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may have created you in a manner where you get angry very quickly. You know. So if Allah has given you more forbearance and has made you that type of person, then you make use of it. If you're a person that Allah has made you and instilled within you something that way you get angry very quickly, don't just say, oh, Allah made me like this. No. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا تغضب, do not get angry. So you have to adapt yourself. You have to be able to control yourself. You know, you have to be able to mold yourself and sharpen your traits in this aspect to where it falls in line with the mannerisms of the Prophet ﷺ. The Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he points out, he mentions a line of poetry. He says, وَالْمَرْءُ لَا يَسْمُو بِغَيْرِ الْأَدَبِ وَإِنْ يَكُنْ ذَا حَسَبٍ وَنَسَبٍ. He says that a person is not raised and cannot be raised without mannerisms and etiquette. You would see, وَإِنْ يَكُنْ ذَا حَسَبٍ وَنَسَبٍ, even if he's a person of lineage, right? A person of status, of high lineage, a person of high status, maybe comes from the royal family itself. If you are a person who's ill-mannered, you will drop in the eyes of the people. Doesn't matter what your background is. Doesn't matter who you're related to. Doesn't matter who your father is. Doesn't matter your background, your wealth, anything. A person who is ill-mannered will drop in the eyes of the people. As for the opposite, a person who is well-mannered, you would see even if they don't have much money, people will respect them. People will honor them. You know, which shows the importance of being well-mannered. And the importance of being well-mannered, especially in the society that we live in. You know, the problem is, if you lived in a Muslim society, it would have a negative effect on you directly. When you live in a kafir, disbelieving society, it has a negative effect on how you will be treated, and it has an indirect negative effect. Or shall we say, it will possibly have a negative effect on how you are treated. And it will have an indirect negative effect on those around you, within your environment. Right. So if you're a Muslim, and you're in the corporate world, and there's two of you working in the same office, same department, right? One of you lies, backbites, swears, cheats, steals, goes to the pub Friday night, doesn't drink orange juice, drinks something else. And the other one, he prays his salah, he doesn't engage in secret Santa, he doesn't go to the Christmas party, right? He does his work properly, he arrives on time, he leaves on time, he comes back from his lunch break on time as well. And he sticks to the book, he doesn't lie, he doesn't backbite, he's a person of principles, right? You now you are embodying the principles of the religion of Islam. The other one, his mannerisms and the way he's carrying himself and conducting himself and interacting with others is having an indirect negative effect on you. Because people will then say, but so-and-so does it, so what's wrong? So-and-so comes with us to the pub on a Friday night. So-and-so was, we'll call him Sa'id, right? Say Abdullah is the one that prays, Sa'id is the one that messes around. Sa'id comes with us to the pub on a Friday night. He was at the Christmas party last night. Where were you? And you say, oh, I don't celebrate it because I'm Muslim. But Sa'id was there. What's the issue? You have to understand, these people, they don't read the Quran. They don't read the Hadith. They don't read about the religion of Islam. What they hear about the religion of Islam is what they see on the media, what they watch on films, right? And what they see in terms of how you conduct yourself. So there seems to be a contradiction, There seems to be a contradiction. So and so is doing it like this, but this one is doing it like that. So that's why, ikhwan, when you're in the workplace, remember, your Muslim colleague is the one who, especially if he's a good person, your Muslim colleague is the one who will not stab you in the back. The others, watch out for them. Okay. Now, the Shaykh Hafidhullah, he says, قال يوسف بن حسين بالأدب تفهم العلم. بالأدب تفهم العلم. According to or through etiquette, you will be able to understand knowledge. Now, what does this mean? What does it mean that through etiquette and through being well-mannered, you'd be able to understand knowledge? The Shaykh Hafidhullah, from now on, he's going to give us somewhat of an example of what this entails. What happens when a person is well-mannered and they attend a gathering of knowledge? What happens when a person is not well-mannered, ill-mannered, in fact, when they attend a gathering of knowledge? How does this affect their seeking of knowledge? How does this affect their ability to acquire knowledge, right? He says, لأن المتأدب يرى أهلا للعلم فيبذل له وقليل الأدب يعز العلم أن يضيع عنده. He says that, look, the person who is well-mannered, he appears to be a person who is deserving of being given knowledge. You come, you sit well, you ask questions properly, you take notes, you're not rude, you're not arrogant. You are a person who, you appear to be someone who is worthy of receiving it. So the teacher will bestow it on you, or will give it to you, or will, it will be a lot easier for the teacher to give it to you. As for, if you're the opposite, you're arrogant, you think you have some knowledge, you are very opinionated, which is a problem with us Westerners, right? We think we know, right? We think we know. Billah alayk. I've seen this so many times, where a person will ask me a question, and then they will say, I don't have knowledge on this topic, but I think, and I just listen or I read the message, and I think to myself sometimes, is there is it even worth responding to this person? When you're seeking ilm, right, and you're seeking the truth, you have to acknowledge, first of all, I don't know. This is what I understand of it, correct my understanding. This is how your approach should be. It shouldn't be that I want to have a debate. I want to debate this issue. If your approach is I want to debate this issue, and you haven't even studied any of the sciences of the Sharia, and you're completely ignorant on the topic that is being discussed, and you're asking a question about, and this is the wrong foot to start on, the completely wrong foot to start on. So the Shaykh, he points out, he says, the one who is qalilul adab, the one who's ill-mannered, who's not well-mannered, the teacher feels that this person is not worthy of the knowledge being given to them, or is not worthy of receiving this knowledge, to where this person may even waste it, or in certain circumstances may use it in the wrong way, The Shaykh Hafidhullah, he says, وَمِنْ هُنَا كَانَ السَّلَفُ رَحِمَهُمُ اللَّهِ يَعْتَنُونَ بِتَعَلُّمِ الْأَدَبِ كَمَا يَعْتَنُونَ بِتَعَلُّمِ الْعِلْمِ. He says that, look, and this is, you'd see that the Salaf Rahimahumullah, the same importance that they would give to seeking knowledge, they would give to to learning etiquettes and to learning mannerisms, right? Now the Shaykh is going to mention some examples from the Salaf. Ibn Sirin, he's going to mention Ibn Sirin. Ibn Sirin is who? Ibn Sirin is from the Tabi'un, right? He's from the Tabi'un, from the generation after the companions, radiallahu anhu. And he was from those that, I think he died when Umar radiallahu anhu was around 9. Afwan. Umar radiallahu anhu died radiallahu anhu when he was around 9, if I remember correctly. Right. So Ibn Sirin rahimahullah, he says, كانوا يتعلمون الهدي كما يتعلمون العلم. He said that the Salaf, they would what? And who is he referring to? When he says كانوا, he's referring to those of his generation, those that are older than him, and the companions radiallahu anhu. They would learn what? They would learn the knowledge and the revelation the same way they would learn knowledge. They would learn etiquettes. كانوا يتعلمون الهدي كما يتعلمون العلم. They would learn the revelation. الهدي means etiquettes in this case. It means etiquettes and mannerisms. They would learn this aspect of mannerisms and how to conduct themselves and how to carry themselves the same way that they would learn knowledge, which shows how important both of these things were. Because you would see the way you carry yourself and conduct yourself and interact with others is a representation of what you know in many cases. It's an implementation of what you have learned. Otherwise, you will be looked down upon. And you will see this. A person who is knowledgeable but doesn't carry themselves in a manner that is befitting for that type of person, even though they're knowledgeable, people still are not fond of them and they look down upon this person. Because what is this person doing? He's going against that which he knows and he has been taught. So you, being a person who learns and is learned, but yet you conduct yourself in a way that is similar to a completely ignorant person, right? A Bedouin who doesn't know much about the religion of Islam. It doesn't make sense. It shows that there's khalal, there's an issue in your understanding or your implementation or your sincerity when it comes to seeking knowledge. He says, حفظه الله, بل إن طائفة منهم يقدمون تعلمه على تعلم العلم. على تعلم العلم. قال مالك بن أنس لفتى من قريش يا ابن أخي تعلم الأدب قبل أن تتعلم العلم. He said that, in fact, you would see that there are those from amongst the ulama of the past who would give precedence to learning mannerisms before learning knowledge. And he mentioned the statement of Imam Malik. Imam Malik, how close was he to the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Imam Malik is considered to be min atba' tabi'in. He is from the generation after. So the second generation after the companions. His teachers are from the first generation. Imam Malik did not meet any of the companions, but he met and he took from the students of the companions, such as Nafi', rahimahullah ta'ala. Imam Malik, he says, oh, the son of my brother, right? Ta'allam al-adab, learn etiquettes and mannerisms before you learn knowledge. Before you learn knowledge. And you can see the wisdom behind the speech of Imam Malik, because this gives you the keys to open up more doors of knowledge, where you don't unfortunately end up closing certain doors of knowledge upon yourself in circumstances where you may not have even intended it, right? So for example, for you to be accustomed with certain etiquettes when it comes to the gatherings and the majalis of ilm. So when you come to a gathering of knowledge, you don't sit with your feet pointed out or stretched out towards the teacher. You don't sit where you're lying back. You don't play on the phone. You don't just look around. You don't speak to the person next to you. And all of these are things that are considered to be from bad etiquettes when it comes to seeking knowledge. And if a teacher sees this from you, then you would see that the teacher would think, this guy, he's not serious. I'm not going to give him much attention. And you may not necessarily know that. that because of your ignorance, you may have closed the door of knowledge upon yourself. So you can see the wisdom of the speech of Imam Ahmad, Imam Malik, speech of Imam Malik, where he is pointing out for you to learn etiquettes and mannerisms. Because this will be a way for you to be able to open up doors of knowledge and for you to be able to be more accepting of, or put yourself in a circumstance where you're more accepting of acquiring ilm. The Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he says, وكانوا يظهرون حاجتهم إليه قال مخلد بن الحسين بن المبارك يوما نحن إلى كثير من الأدب أحوج منا إلى كثير من العلم وكانوا يوصون به ويرشدون إليه. He says that not only that, they wouldn't stop there. He pointed out, Hafidhahullah, they would also point out their need for ilm. They would point out their need for knowledge, their need for being learning etiquettes and mannerisms. Where Makhlad ibn Hussein, he said to Abdullah bin Malik, rahimahullah, he said that we are in need of etiquettes and mannerisms more than we are in need of knowledge. So this was something that they would shy away from. This is something that they would mention to each other, they would encourage each other with, they would encourage their students with. This was something that was widespread amongst them, And he mentions, rahimahullah, he mentions the statement of Imam Malik in terms of what his mother used to do to him. Look how wise his mother was, rahimahullah. Rahimahullah. He says, قال الإمام مالك رحمه الله كانت أمي تعممني. My mother, she used to put my imama on for me. وتقول لي, she would say to me, اذهب إلى ربيع. إلى ربيعة. Go to ربيعة. أي ربيعة الرأي. Go to ربيعة. Right? Who was one of the scholars of Medina at that time. One of the great scholars of Islam. فتعلم من أدبه قبل علمه. And learn from his etiquette before you learn from his knowledge. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, it was said that 5,000 people would attend his gathering. 5,000 people. His gathering of hadith. 500 of them would be writing down hadith. The others would be there observing Imam Ahmad, taking from his etiquettes and his mannerisms, rahimahullah ta'ala. The Shaykh then says, وَإِنَّمَا حُرِمَ كَثِيرٌ مِنْ طَلَبَةِ الْعَصْرِ الْعِلْمَ بِتَضِيعِ الْأَدَبِ. He said that verily a lot of the current day students of knowledge have been prevented from ilm itself. They've been prevented from knowledge because of them wasting and letting go and being very lenient and not giving importance, and giving you a summary of what this entails, not giving importance to this aspect of al-adab. And wallah, you see it, the way that they address their teacher, the way they speak to their teacher, the way they may speak about their teacher, the way that they would be in the gatherings of knowledge, the way they may interact with each other. You see this qillatul adab amongst some of them, unfortunately, which therefore prevents them from ilm, prevents them from ilm. أشرف الليث بن سعد رحمه الله على أصحاب الحديث فرأى منهم شيئا كأنه كرهه. الليث بن سعد رحمه الله, he noticed from a group of those that were seeking hadith, that were studying and learning hadith. He noticed something from them that he disliked. فقال ما هذا? He said, what is this? أنتم إلى يسير من الأدب. You are in need of a little bit of knowledge. أحوج منكم إلى كثير من العلم. You're in need of a little bit of knowledge of etiquettes, or etiquette, shall we say, and being well-mannered. Then you are in need of a lot of knowledge, in fact. And I wonder what he saw from them, because the narration doesn't necessarily point out what he saw from them, right? But the Shaykh, he mentioned something interesting. He says, فماذا يقول الليث لو رأى حال كثير من طلاب العلم في هذا العصر. The Shaykh Hafidhullah, he said, what would Layth ibn Sa'ad rahimahullah say if he saw the situation of a lot of students of knowledge today, and this aspect of them, not being well-mannered, qalilul adab, Allah is strange. It's very, very intriguing. Now, the Shaykh Hafidhullah, he points out the summary of how we can break down the etiquettes of a student of knowledge. Right? So you can say, number one, أدب طالب العلم عن نفسه. Right? Category number one. The etiquettes of a student of knowledge with himself or with herself. أدب طالب العلم عن نفسه. The etiquettes of a student of knowledge with himself or herself. Number two would be أدب طالب العلم مع أدب طالب العلم مع شيخه. The etiquettes of a student of knowledge with his teacher. Number three would be أدب طالب العلم في حضور في مجالس العلم. أو في مجالس العلم. أدب طالب العلم في مجالس العلم. The etiquettes of a student of knowledge when it comes to the gatherings of knowledge. Gatherings of knowledge. And then the fourth one would be أدب طالب العلم مع قرينه أو زملائه. The etiquette of a student of knowledge with his companions or his zumala, his fellow students. You know, you could say adab. Adab would be maybe better. Etiquette. I mean, either way. Adab طالب العلم, adab طالب العلم. Either way, both of them make sense. So we're going to go into the first one. آداب طالب العلم مع نفسه أو أدب طالب العلم مع نفسه. Right? The etiquettes of a student of knowledge with himself. The Shaykh here, he talks about something known as al-muru'ah. Al-muru'ah. What is al-muru'ah? Al-muru'ah we're going to get to. Before we get into the point of the Shaykh, there's a couple of points I want to mention that the Shaykh maybe didn't give much importance to. Because of possibly what he mentioned earlier on, in terms of laying down the foundation of taqwa and sidq and sincerity, in those aspects. But I'll mention this. The etiquettes of a talib al-ilm ma'a nafsihi, with himself, it entails a few different things. It entails, number one, that you implement what you learn. Al-amalu bil-ilm. Al-amalu bil-ilm. This is from the etiquettes of you being a student of knowledge, in terms of your nafs, that you apply what you learned. The poet, he says, وَعَالِمٌ بِعِلْمِهِ لَمْ يَعْمَلًا مُعَذَّبٌ مِنْ قَبْلِ عُبَّادِ الْوَثَنِ. And he's pointing towards the hadith of those that would be from the first that would be punished in the fire. From them is a person who sought knowledge not for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you're seeking knowledge, act upon it. Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he would say, كُنَّا نَسْتَعِينُ عَلَى حِفْظِ الْحَدِيثِ بِالْعَمَلِ بِهِ. We would use as a means for us to solidify our memorization of a hadith by acting upon it. It was mentioned that Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he would not memorize a hadith except that he acted upon it. To where it was mentioned that he memorized the hadith of where the Prophet ﷺ did hijama, and he gave the person, the hajjam, the person who did the hijama, a dinar. So Imam Ahmad, he did hijama and he gave the guy who did the hijama for him a dinar. Was it a dinar or a dirham? I think it was a dinar, if I remember correctly. So it shows, number one, al-amalu bil-ilm, that you have to act upon this knowledge. You have to act upon this knowledge. طيب, number two is that as a talib al-ilm, you need to have a schedule. If you don't have a schedule, ikhwan, you will be lost in life. You have to have a schedule, and you have to stick to that schedule very well. And you have to understand, ikhwan, your schedule and the goals that you set are one of the main factors for you to become successful when it comes to seeking knowledge. بعد توفيق الله تعالى. After the tawfiq of Allah, your schedule and the goals that you set. You have to have goals in mind, right? Of things that you want to complete within a specific time period. It's extremely important. books, things that you want to memorize, books that you want to read, you know. And this is something I'm going to mention. When it comes to seeking ilm, actually, you know what? The Shaykh is going to mention it. The Shaykh is going to mention it. The issue of hifd. He's going to come to it. Because I remember he mentions it. He mentions the issue of memorizing. Yeah, memorizing. خلاص. We're going to leave that till there then. Okay. طيب. We'll leave the aspect of memorizing till then. I'll add more information when it comes to the issue of schedule as well, then as well, and goals as بإذن ta'ala, just so we can have it all in one place. But the most important thing, ikhwani, is al-amalu bil-ilm. Al-amalu bil-ilm, for you to act upon the knowledge that you have learned. So it becomes a hujjah for you. It becomes an evidence for you, not an evidence against you. Al-Ma'aqid al-Hadi Ashar. He says, Hafidhahullah ta'ala, comprehensive principle, number 11. صيانة العلم عما يشين مما يخالف المروءة. Right. ويخرمها. For you to protect ilm and from that which will, you know, which will have a negative effect on it, shall we say. And for you to, from that which goes against al-muru'ah. That which goes against al-muru'ah. What is al-muru'ah? Al-muru'ah can be loosely translated and explained as the adat and the norms and the customs of a Muslim society that are looked down upon if you don't abide by them. It may not necessarily be haram, but it may be looked down upon depending on the person itself. And the Shaykh is going to give us some examples, and I'm going to mention some practical examples, inshallah. He mentions, Hafidhahullah ta'ala, he says, مَنْ لَمْ يَصُنِ الْعِلْمَ لَمْ يَصُنُ الْعِلْمَ كما قال الشافعي رحمه الله ومن أخل بالمروءة بالوقوع فيما يشين فقد استخف بالعلم فلم يعظمه ووقع في البطالة فتفضي به الحال إلى زوال اسم العلم عنه. In this paragraph here, the Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he points out, he mentions that the one who doesn't preserve the one who doesn't preserve knowledge will not preserve him. كما قال, as Imam al-Shafi'i mentioned. And he says the one who goes against al-muru'ah by falling into things that are not praiseworthy, things that are disliked, it necessitates that a person is not doing ta'zeem of this ilm. He's not glorifying it, not respecting it, not honoring it, right? Where it will lead to where the name of knowledge will be taken from this person. The attribute of knowledge will be taken from this person. Okay, what are examples of al-muru'ah? What are examples of things that a person can fall into that go against it? I'll give you some examples. Let me mention some examples that the ulama of hadith would mention. Because the ulama of hadith, when they talk about a person being adl, right, being just, or should we say trustworthy, right? Two things are taken into consideration: at-taqwa wal-muru'ah. Taqwa, we know what taqwa is, being conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muru'ah is another thing. From the things that they would say is that if a person is walking down the street eating food, this is one of the things they would say goes against the muru'ah. You know, guy has a box of chicken and chips, and walking down the street, just boxing the chicken and chips with this can of Coke. This goes against muru'ah. This goes against al-muru'ah. And it's something that is looked down upon. And this was back then. Even if you go to the Muslim countries, it is still something looked down upon. For a guy to be walking down the street, have a plate in his hand, a plastic plate in his hand, and just eating food, you know, and just drinking. He's got his fizzy drink in his pocket, and he's just pulling it out. It's not min al-muru'ah. It goes against it. It goes against it completely. What's a more practical example? That is a practical example for today. I'll give you another example. Another example would be for you to be seen in certain places that may not necessarily be 100% haram, but they're places where people of jahl and ignorance and, you know, foolishness generally are, right? So an example of that would be the local calf, where you got the uncles in the corner talking about tribalism, and the other guy in the other corner complaining about his uncle back home who stole his land. And then you've got the other guys in the corner who are just watching and fighting each other over who's going to win the Premier League, Arsenal or Man City. Right? These type of places. As a talib ilm, you avoid these places. You don't go into, if you're going to go in, you pick up your tea, your coffee, your snack, and you leave. You don't sit in these places. If you want to go to a coffee shop, you go to a respectable one, right? Got people in the corner working, others, studying, some people reading, quiet place, respectable place. Don't go to this place where, madness is just going on. This goes against al-muru'ah, Or you're in a place where the place itself is not haram, but it's known for fusaq, people of fisq, where they gather and they come together and they meet up. And sometimes it might even be like a what's it called? A dessert parlor. But you know that this dessert parlor is a hot spot for a specific type of thing. Everything that's being sold there is halal. But this place, people only come here for something specific. That place you shouldn't go. Or if you're going to go, maybe you go at 11 o'clock in the morning, where no one is there. But for you to go around 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, where only a specific category of the Muslim society, or even the society as a whole, comes there, shouldn't be there. Right? Or, for example, a place where generally people are committing haram. Generally, you shouldn't be there. But it's not befitting for a person to be there. Because what you realize is a talib ilm, people, they look at you and they see, okay, this person is a person who has acquired knowledge. And certain things are just not befitting for this type of person, which is, it's true. When you're a person who's carrying ilm, something heavy, So you should avoid certain places. You can grab your stuff and leave. You don't be sitting in these places where you've got a bunch of fusaq and a bunch of crazy people around you, people fighting, fist fights going on, لا ينبغي. That type of stuff is not befitting. طيب. So the Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he says قال وهب ابن منبه لا يكون البطال من الحكماء. He says that the person who is far from being well-mannered, who is ill-mannered, the Shaykh himself, this is how he explained it. Right. The one who's far from the akhlaq of al-ilm will not be from the people of hikmah, the people of wisdom. Right. Imam Malik, what did he say about ilm? He said, ليس العلم بكثرة المسائل ولكنها حكمة. He said, ilm, it is not just knowing so many different issues, but it is a wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives to whoever He wills. He gives to whoever He wills. So this ilm that you receive, it is a wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you would see that there are two people who both start their journey together. They're both intellectually on the same level. Their ability to memorize, same level. They go through all of the stages of ilm in a similar manner. And they come out at the end. You would see that the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored in a specific way, where both of them might have the same information, but the ability to extract a meaning, one of them might be better than the other. And this is a virtue from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because at the end of the day, this is a hikmah, it's a wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon His servants. Where they're able to tie together certain things, ahadith and ayat, and they're able to separate specific issues that appear to be similar. These are from the intricacies of ilm. When you're able to gather together things that appear to be different, but there's an aspect of it that matches, and you're able to extract something from it and apply it to a specific situation, and you come across a circumstance where there are ayat and ahadith or specific issues that appear to be the same, but you're able to pinpoint something that shows that there is a difference that is mu'athir. Mu'athir al-hukm, has an effect on the ruling, because not every difference is considered to be mu'athir. Not everything that differs from something else, but may be similar in another way, has an effect on the ruling. There are certain things that when you look at it from a specific angle, it has an athar. It is considered to be something that yu'athir, it has an effect on the ruling where it changes the ruling to something else. But this comes down, it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it comes down to practice and you being in this environment and this field of ilm for so long. طيب, the Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he says, وَجِمَاعُ الْمُرُوءَةِ كما قاله ابن تيمية الجد في المحرر وتبعه حفيده في بعض فتاويه استعمال ما يجمله ويزينه وتجنب ما يدنسه ويشينه. He mentions the statement by Ibn Taymiyyah's grandfather. Ibn Taymiyyah's grandfather, right, is considered to be one of the great scholars of the Hanabila. So you have Ibn Taymiyyah al-Jad, and you have Ibn Taymiyyah al-Hafid. So you have the grandfather, and then you have the grandson, right? There is a similarity as well as you find in others, such as Tajuddin al-Subki wa Taqiyuddin al-Subki. Tajuddin and Taqiyuddin, both of them were ulama of the past. Taj is the son, Taqi is the father. That's how I remembered it. Taj is the son and Taqi is the father, even though both of them are referred to as Subki. But anyway, let's carry on. What did he mention? He said that al-ru'a, what does it come down to? He says, استعمال ما يجمله ويزينه. Is for you to use and to do that which beautifies you and adorns you, right? Or you adorn yourself with it. And for you to stay away from anything that will, can we say, dirties you, pollutes you, stains your reputation. I think it's the best way to explain it. Not to literally translate it, but to explain it. That's what will, stain your reputation. It may not necessarily be something haram in all cases, but it might be something that people may look down upon you for because of you engaging in it. Sometimes it might even be when it comes to how you react. Or let me give you another example. Generally, the issue of tribalism exists in our community, right? It's rife. But for a sheikh, a person of knowledge, right, to have this within them, and to talk about this topic and to take sides and to have this element within them. When you see an average guy, right, your uncle, your cousin, or your father, whoever he may be, talking about this issue, and he's being a bit tribalist, you say, nah, this guy, I don't know what this is not good. But when you see a person of knowledge engaging in it, it is something that you think, whoa, what's wrong with this guy? Because why? Because you, in your mind, you perceive this person of knowledge in a specific way. You think that this person, he's above this. He wouldn't get involved in this type of stuff. He wouldn't be taking sides, So when you see this type of thing, what does it do? It stains the person's reputation, So these are certain examples of it. Even though we know the aspect of tribalism in terms of, speaking badly about another person's tribe because of the tribe itself, it's haram. It's not allowed. It's min umur al-jahiliyyah, from the issues from the affairs of the times of ignorance, from their customs and their habits. But I'm just using this as an example to point out how your perception of someone, right, can change. And how the issue of a person of ilm engaging in these type of things, it stains their reputation even more, or has a more of an effect on their reputation, right? The Shaykh Hafidhullah, he brings up the statement of Abi Muhammad Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Now, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, who did we say he was the teacher of? And we took his, we mentioned his name the week before. Was it last week? No, the week before last. Humaydi. He was the teacher of Al-Humaydi. Generally, if you see Humaydi saying Haddathana Sufyan, you would see it means Sufyan ibn Uyayna, because that was his teacher. Okay, that was his teacher. And you'd see it in Al-Bukhari. The first hadith of Al-Bukhari mentions it, right? Well, Imam Al-Bukhari says Haddathana Al-Humaydi, قال Haddathana Sufyan. The hadith of Ibn Umar, or the hadith of Umar, إنما الأعمال بالنيات. Hadith of Umar رضي الله عنه. Anyway, let's carry on. قيل لي أبي محمد سفيان بن عيينة. When it was said to Abu Muhammad Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Abu Muhammad was his kunya. قد استنبطت من القرآن كل شيء فأين المروءة فيه. He said that you have extracted everything from the Quran, right? Meaning he's pointing out there's many things that you have, you've read the Quran, come across its verses, and you have extracted things from it. He said, where is this issue of al-muru'ah? Where is muru'ah in the Quran? Ibn Uyayna, he mentions the verse, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ ففيه المروءة وحسن الأدب ففيه المروءة وحسن الأدب ومكارم الأخلاق. He said, within this verse is the issue of muru'ah, and within it is being well mannered, and within it is lofty mannerisms. خذ العفو. Some have explained it as being, be gracious, be a person who is well mannered, person who is above the people in terms of his mannerisms. وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ, and command that which is khayr, that which is good. وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ, and turn away from the people of ignorance. Meaning you don't engage in it. You don't engage in this aspect of al-jahl with them. You don't engage. If they swear at you, you don't swear back at them. If they insult you, you don't insult them back. You leave them. وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ, you turn away from them. There's no point. It is not worth engaging in a back and forth with these people. You are above that. And this is from al-muru'ah. If you see a person of ilm engaging in a back and forth, guy cut him off, he has some road rage, the guy who cut him off starts swearing at him. Then the guy of ilm starts swearing at his mother. And you think to yourself, what's wrong with this guy? The first thing would come to your mind, this guy is meant to be a person of knowledge. How is he reacting in this way? So, you, as a person of ilm, you do not engage in this back and forth. You turn your back on these people. He says, Hafidhullah, he says, وَمِنْ أَلْزَمِ أَدَبِ النَّفْسِ لِلطَّالِبِ تَحَلِّيهِ بِالْمُرُوءَةِ وَمَا يَحْمِلُ عَلَيْهَا وتنكبه خوارمها التي تخل بها كحلق لحيته أو كثرة الالتفات في الطريق أو مد الرجلين في مجمع الناس من غير حاجة ولا ضرورة داعية أو صحبة الأراذل والفساق والمجان والبطالين أو مصارعة الأحداث والصغار. So the Shaykh, he gives some examples. He says, from the most important of the etiquette of a talib al-ilm with himself is for the person to adorn themselves with this aspect of muru'ah, and for him to do the things that will uphold it, and for him to avoid the things that will stain his reputation. If this is the best way to explain it. He gives examples of this, such as what? Such as shaving your beard. Right? Haram. Shaving your beard is haram, number one. Shaving your beard on top of that it is min khawarim al-muru'ah, for a person of ilm. Because when you think of a person of knowledge, you think that this is a person who acts upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Even for the Ami, the person who is not a person who really, bothers themselves with seeking knowledge. They think a person of ilm, the way that they imagine them is that, he looks a specific way and he has a beard. No matter how small it is, he has some hairs on his chin, if it grows, right? So when the shaving of the beard comes into play, it's min khawarim al-muru'ah. It goes completely against that, completely against it. The Shaykh, he also said, كثرة الالتفات في الطريق, يعني when you're walking on the street or looking around as if you're paranoid. Because then that makes people think that, up here you're not mentally stable. Imagine you're walking down the street and you see a Shaykh that every second he's looking over his shoulder as if like there is some jinn or something around him. First thing that will come to your mind is, I don't know if this guy is all right, Or مد الرجلين, or when you're in a gathering. He doesn't even mention the gathering of ilm. He mentions just a normal gathering. That you don't just spread your legs out without a need. Unless, obviously, sometimes you might need to spread your legs out, if there's a specific need, it's a bit tight. But for you to just, sit in that manner, and look, gatherings are of different circumstances. There might be gatherings where it's just you and your friends, right? When it's just you and your friends, you and your brothers, that type of gathering, it's a bit more relaxed. Then there are a bit more formal gatherings. The formal gatherings are where you shouldn't really be engaging in these type of things. Where you should be, lying back and lying down. And generally you would see in many gatherings, in the Muslim world, if they're not sitting on chairs, they might be sitting on the ground, right? Pillows and cushions on the ground. He also said, Hafidhullah, for you to accompany people of fisq, people who are ill-mannered, right? Why is this min khawarim al-muru'ah? It is because you will be perceived in a different way. Imagine you're always seen with, let's say, look, imagine this. You are teaching in the masjid, you're teaching people knowledge and different things, but every time people see you on the street or in a car, they see you with the guy who is known to be a drug dealer. Known drug dealer. All the time. You guys are best friends. You go out, eat coffee together, drink coffee together. You go to different restaurants. You guys are seen here, seen there. You go on trips together. And it's not even this aspect of you're giving him nasiha. You're trying to bring him closer to Islam. You're trying to bring him closer to the masjid. You guys are just boys from day one, right? You guys went primary school together, high school together, college. Maybe he dropped out, but you completed it. Uni. You guys have been boys from day one. So you're thinking to yourself, you know what? I can't cut this guy off. Now, there's a difference between cutting him off and being with him in all different circumstances. The reality, ikhwan, is your environment, it has an effect on you. Those who you surround yourself with have an effect on you. So if you are going to be giving this guy da'wah, that's fine. You see him occasionally. Make sure that you still keep that relationship with him as your Muslim brother. That's fine. But this aspect of you always being together, if he's known to be a drug dealer, then that means you're in the car or you're with him when he's dealing out and he's giving out the things that help him earn his income. And you must be turning a blind eye. So these type of things, these are things you should completely avoid. Completely avoid. Your circle of friends are extremely important. طيب, okay. The Shaykh, Hafidhullah, he moves on to the next form of etiquette, which is adabu talib al-ilm or adabu talib al-ilm ma'a qarinihi. أو مع زملائه. The etiquette or the etiquette of a student of knowledge with their or with his companions or with her companions, with her friend, his friend. And the fellow طالب ilm that's seeking ilm with you. Here the Shaykh is going to talk about making sure that you pick a good friend. He says, حفظه الله تعالى انتخاب الصحبة الصالحة انتخاب الصحبة الصالحة له. Making sure that you pick the righteous friend or picking the righteous friend. He says, اتخاذ الزميل ضرورة لازمة في نفوس الخلق. The Shaykh, he points out, look, he says, something that is intrinsically within us as human beings is that we need a companion. You know, we need a companion. For a person to be lonely is abnormal. That's why you find people who are suffering from certain mental illnesses. Where do you find them most of the time? A lot of the time you find them to be alone. Schizophrenia and some of these other mental illnesses. It's abnormal. As humans, you would find that we are very social creatures. Even for those of us that are introverted, we still need this aspect of a social circle. So this is intrinsically something within us. And it is something that you find the religion of Islam encourages. For you to be connected with your fellow Muslim brothers and your fellow Muslim sisters. And for you not to have this individualistic mindset and this individualistic approach to life that unfortunately the West pushes. Now there is something else I would mention to you though. For you to be a talib ilm and for you to achieve what you may aspire to achieve, if you have high aspirations, you need to be able to spend a lot of time alone. Now, is there a contradiction between the two? Not necessarily. You would find that you would spend more time alone than you would spend with other people, but you would still spend time with people. You know, I'll give you an example. I remember when we were studying, our study week would start on a Sunday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And what is our weekend? Our weekend is Friday and Saturday. So I would study, and this is generally, it would be me and my next door neighbor, Sheikh Khalid. Right? We were zumala on this journey. I would study Sunday. I'd have my dirasa, my studies in the morning. After Asr, after Asr, I'd be studying. After Maghrib, if I have a class. If not, I'd eat and I'd study. After Isha, up until 11. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. When Thursday came around, Thursday would be half day, where I would have my studies. Dhuhr, I would go to sleep. Asr time, I would go to the library. I would go, not the library, I would go to the bookstores, the bookshops. Me, Sheikh Khalid, would go, both of us will go to the bookshops. We go get something to eat, come back to our rooms after Isha, do a bit of reading, if there's any new books that we bought, go to sleep, prepare for Jum'ah the next day. Friday, I would study after Jum'ah, after Asr. So after Jum'ah, we pray Jum'ah, local, get something to eat, come back to the room, study. After Asr, study. After Maghrib, study. After Isha on a Friday is when we will go out, get some tea and coffee and stuff. And then that was a Friday. Saturday would be similar. Saturday, after Dhuhr, after Asr, after Maghrib, I might have a lesson. After Isha, maybe we might go out, maybe not. Because the next day we have Jami'ah. We have studies again. So most of the time, it was spent studying. Most of the hours of the day was spent studying. Most of the hours of my day, I was spent completely alone. Other than the times when I was in class, or the times where, the times I would have a lesson with one of the mashayikh. Other than that, all of the other hours were spent alone. You know. Apart from maybe the time we'd go to the bookshop and the time we would meet up for the tea and coffee on the weekend, you know. And it was completely fine. I had absolutely no issue. And I think I might have mentioned before, I didn't realize it was abnormal until one day I said to myself, I haven't spoken to anyone today. Because sometimes a day or two would go by and I have not spoken to anyone. You know, I thought to myself one day, I thought, this is strange. But it didn't affect me that much. To be honest, it didn't affect me at all. You know. To where even now, I prefer to be at home with my books than to go out. I might go out, enjoy the fresh air, sunshine, but I prefer, if I haven't spent a day where I've read, I've benefited, I've done some form of studying, that day I feel like I've wasted that day, you know. But if you want to be serious about ilm, this is how your life should be, especially when you're going abroad to study. You shouldn't be. I remember I would go to different cities, right? And I would see some guys who were there to study, and they would waste a lot of time, you know, from some of the students from the different parts of the world. Some guys would be playing football after Asr, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, you're here for a certain amount of time. You need to benefit from your time, you know. If you don't go there with a plan and you execute that plan and you start and you take action, you will regret it so much when it comes towards the end of your time, you know. Because the amount of years that you spent out there, you can get so much done and you can benefit a lot. And you'll benefit even more if you have a head start where you've memorized the Quran or you memorized most of the Quran and you know Arabic and you've studied certain ulum before you even go there. And the tools that you acquire from while you are there will benefit you for the rest of your life, you know. But back to this issue, the Shaykh is talking about making sure that you have a good companion. Companionship is so important when it comes to this aspect of seeking knowledge. Why is it so important? You need someone to discuss issues with. You need someone to see what their opinion is. You need to see someone that comes from a different walk of life, maybe even from a different city, you know. They may be involved in different things. They may interact with others. They may experience other things. You share experiences, different approaches, different methods, different books that they come across. This is the benefit of having companions when it comes to seeking knowledge. The thing is, when you're taking companions when it comes to seeking knowledge, it's good to have a mix. Those that are above you, those that are on your same level, those that are below you, because with this mix, all of you will be able to benefit. Those that are below you, you will benefit them and they will benefit you, right? Those that are on your same level, then you can both benefit each other. Those that are above you, then you will be able to benefit more from them, even though they will benefit from you in many aspects, you know. That's why if you do go abroad, I would say take advantage of getting to know some of the tulab al-ilm, the students of knowledge that are well grounded, that are from back home, from your countries of ethnic origin, because many of them are very well grounded in different sciences, you know, and you can benefit from them in many different things. And they will challenge you, you will challenge them, even when it comes to their approach on how they approach certain masail and certain issues, because they're so used to being from a specific background. Their perception of how they've understood a specific mas'ala, an issue, might be a specific way because of the community that they come from, the society they come from, and things that they haven't been exposed to. But you may view it from a different angle, right? because of different things you've been exposed to. So it creates a positive and healthy back and forth where both of you are able to benefit. You'll benefit a lot from those that are stronger than you, especially the countries of ethnic origin, especially from back home. There's a lot of good students of knowledge that come from back home that are well grounded in the different ulum of the Sharia, the different sciences of the Sharia. طيب, the Shaykh حفظه he points out, he says اتخاذ الزميل, he says okay, طيب, فيحتاج طالب العلم إلى معاشرة غيره من الطلاب لتعينه هذه المعاشرة على تحصيل العلم والاجتهاد في طلبه. The Shaykh, he points out here, he says, look, he says that a طالب العلم, a student of knowledge, is in need of other students of knowledge in terms of, having this connection with them, sometimes even living with them, spending time with them. Because this helps you in your seeking of knowledge, and it helps you in your ijtihad, in your striving when it comes to seeking knowledge. When you come from a certain environment, those that are in your environment that you are exposed to might have a specific mentality in terms of their approach of seeking ilm. But when you come across those that are more advanced than you, and you see the things that they have achieved, and you realize that, look, this guy is a human being just like me. It's just that he spent more time, and if he's able to do it, I'm able to do it. And it pushes you. It pushes you to memorize more, to learn more, to strive to learn more. Especially this aspect of memorizing. Memorizing in the West is something that is seen to be something that's not given much importance. People, they memorize the Quran, and that's it. If you go to the Muslim countries, you would see people, they memorize the Quran. The Quran is something that everyone memorizes, nearly everyone. It's like shay adi, something normal. You go to the masjid, you make a mistake as the imam, 15 people behind you will correct you, maybe even more. But they memorize the Quran, they memorize mutun ilmiya, sometimes they memorize thousands of lines of poetry, right? They memorize books of hadith. And I mentioned before, there's programs where there's specific programs where you enter into the program after you've memorized the Quran to memorize certain books of hadith. And these are all things that you see. Sometimes you come across students from certain parts of the world, and they are non-native Arabic speakers like yourself, but they're poets. Like some of the brothers from West Africa, Senegal. And you think to yourself, this guy, he's not Arab, but he's learned Arabic to the extent where he's able to put together lines of poetry himself, not from things that he has, not other people's poetry. This is his own poetry. And you realize there is the ceiling that you have set for yourself, you need to break. And you need to, your aspirations need to surpass the ceiling that you've set for yourself. And you can sometimes only really acknowledge this and grasp this once you come into contact with others who have surpassed you. Another thing you'll realize as well, you as a Westerner have an advantage that many of those from that part of the world don't have, which is this aspect of being able to critically analyze the text in front of you. Because you would see there's a culture or there's a specific culture that is adopted in certain educational institutions, or even the approach of it when it comes to education in certain parts of the world, where they give more influence to, they give more importance to memorizing. More importance to memorizing than for you to be able to break down text in front of you. Here in the West, they give more importance to you being able to break down the text in front of you, right? For you to critically analyze it and give your thoughts and write a summary and the conclusion that you've reached. From a young age, they do this. In your English class, they do this. So these things, if you studied properly, you're just not messing around in school, which you shouldn't be. You would see that these skills are transferable. These skills are transferable, and will benefit you when it comes to your approach in seeking ilm. You know, so don't think that you're at a complete disadvantage. Not necessarily. There are certain things that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has given you that are considered to be an advantage, and I witnessed this myself. I remember, right? There was a brother who had memorized a lot, and I knew he had memorized a lot because he came to one of the classes I was at with one of the mashayikh, and I saw his book, and I know when you're memorizing from a book, you see this way this book looks like. This book has barely been read. I know, I can tell. Okay. But you know, if this type of book has creases all over here, all of this is brown, right? See this part brown. I know this book has been read many times. So I saw a matan that he had, and I could see it was folded and it was creased and the edges were curled up and this part was a bit, it must have been a bit brown. So I know this guy has memorized this matan, and it was long. It was just over 1,000 lines of poetry, and I know he had memorized a large amount of hadith. I remember we had an exam, and he was in my class, and the question was a simple question, but for some reason he found it difficult to grasp, difficult to understand. You know, and I thought to myself, this guy has memorized so much, and you can't break down this question. It's an easy question, you know, but it kind of pointed out to me something that I previously noticed, which is just because you're able to memorize a lot does not necessarily mean that transfers over to your ability to understand. You know, your ability to understand. So I'm just using this as an example to say that if you have this skill that you have acquired because of the educational system that you've been through, make use of it. Make use of it bi'idhnillah ta'ala. طيب, okay, what we'll do inshallah ta'ala, number 13, number 12 bi'idhnillah, we will complete next week. We'll complete next week inshallah ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.